Hi, this is Terry Lupo, and you are on Chapter 4 of the audio version of Pirates of Savannah. Please remember, if you'd like a commercial-free version, to swing over to www.lupoliink.com, L-I-N-K. Thanks for your support.
Chapter 4, Passage to a New World. The ex-prisoners adapted to sea life well, rarely getting sick. But as soon as they earned their sea legs, the fresh food ran out, and their diets only consisted of salty meats. Their knives scarred the pewter plates because the salted pork and fish was so tough to cut. The ship was gripped with constipation and a constant, overwhelming thirst. To complicate matters, the fresh water was becoming scarce, and the stores were dangerously low. The water was collected by any means possible. When rains came, any item that could hold liquid was placed topside to collect the precious runoff. Mandrake devised a very clever method to recover water out of the sails. Most mornings, dew would collect in the sails, and he would instruct the rigger monkeys to tilt the cloth at just the right angle so that the dew would bead together and run down the sails into a waiting cistern, which was nothing more than a modified barrel. If the sails were shaken and wrung out as well, they yielded an astonishing amount of water. The quartermaster proudly boasted to the crew that it was an ancient Greek sailing trick to collect water. Most of the men ignored this claim, since Mr. Mandrake was notorious for attributing credit to the Greeks for every single good idea on the ship. If a crew member invented something as small and simple as a new knot, Mandrake would proclaim loudly in his awkward Greek voice, The Greeks did that first." The longer at sea, the longer the crew sailed, the more efficient each man became at their jobs. Soon the crew had a fair amount of free time on their hands, and the gambling started, and although it was against the captain's policies, everybody gambled. Well, just about everybody. Isaac had finally learned his lesson from the debtor's prison and swore it off for life. Liar's dice was the game of choice, and Patrick watched some of his crewmates make and lose a small fortune, flipping cups and making dubious claims. Too nervous to play a game he knew nothing about, Patrick watched his fellow sailors play for hours. When Patrick became familiar with the game, he still did not try his hand at liar's dice. The carpenter's mate had no money nor valuables. All he had to bid with was his rations of food. He was just starting to feel strong and look healthy again, and considered his food too high stakes to lose in a game of dice. Except for his grog, the wild-eyed Irishman immediately started betting all of his food in the game. By betting large amounts of his food, Shamus somehow negotiated his way into a game with real silver. The Irish drunk had a real gift for lying. He told Patrick in confidence he was descended from a race of storytellers, natural liars, and was quickly amassing a small fortune in silver. Patrick watched in awe as Shamus entered a very high-stakes game where the winner would walk out with 150 ounces of silver doubloons. Shamus somehow won an exotic hat and clothing from his last few games and now wore them as trophies. To complete this image, he now sported a small beard and a mustache, which he had grown with astonishing speed for an Irishman. Shamus had sat on deck with two other sailors in a triangle formation. A gasp went out from the crowd as the silver rounds were split into a pot. One of Shamus's opponents wore a very fancy gentleman's blue hat. The other gambler was shirtless and only wore a hempen necklace tied with shells. The three men had 5 dice in front of them on the deck and a worn wooden cup. Holding each other's gaze, the 3 men collected the dice carefully, dropped them in their cups, and wildly shook. A thunderous crack echoed above the waves, lapping the bow of the Robin, as all 3 men in unison slammed their cups down on the deck. All eyes watched as the combatants peeked under their cups. "I'll have to follow our shirtless friend's lead," the top-hat man countered with a confident smile and a well-educated English accent. "I believe there are 5 twos." "There are 6 twos on the floor," the shirtless man offered with a grin. "You a bunch of fucking liars," Shamus screeched. "I'm calling you out." The three men lifted their cups, revealing their dice so that the counting could begin. The shirtless man had 4 twos. The man wearing the top hat revealed 2 twos. "Crap! You fucking liars and cheats will fuck their father's horses," Shamus cursed as he revealed he also had a die showing a 2. "Well, that is 7, the educated man informed Shamus. "Cast your die in, sir." "Fuck you! I can do numbers, you pig cocksucker." Shamus pouted as he tossed a die into the pot. The men collected their dice, but Shamus now only had 4 dice, and the others still had 5. They shook their cups. Shamus quickly lost 2 more obscenity-filled rounds, and was now just down to 2 remaining dice. Although he was down in dice, the toothless pale man used the opportunity to study his opponents closely. The gentleman always opened a bid with a bluff, lying about his dice he did not have. He hoped his opponents would bid too high, and then he could call their lie out. The other man seemed more honest, except he would toy with his necklace, a subtle tell. Shamus continued to cuss like a madman, but it was all theater now. He had all the information he needed, and he quickly turned the game around. "I open with 4 threes," the gentleman coolly stated. Shamus immediately pounced on him and challenged him. "He's lying. Call him out." "I think you may be right." The shirtless man agreed with Shamus before turning to the gentleman. "You be a liar." The gentleman's mouth was slightly agape as he questioned, "It's the opening bid. Are you sure you want to call?" "Stop fucking off," Shamus called as pointing at the gentleman's cup. "Show your damn dice." The business of turning cups began. Shamus's cup revealed he had 1 3. The shirtless sailor had 2 threes. The top hat man had none. "Only 3 fucking threes," Shamus howled in victory. "Cast your die in, you dog humper." The game went back and forth with lies upon lies until all 3 men only had 1 die each. Shamus wondered if he should open with a lie or actually be honest and play his die true. Honest to his nature, he decided the lie. "I open with 1 5, you sheep shaggers," Shamus cooed happily. "What is this with you and all this bestiality? Do you think of nothing else?" the gentleman questioned. He was frustrated losing so many dice to 2 such lowly characters, and was quickly becoming disgusted with Shamus's outburst. "I grew tired of fucking your mom and moved on to her livestock," Shamus snapped. "Now make your bet, you shite eater." "Very well," the gentleman pompously conceded. 1 6. The shirtless man quietly stated 2 threes without fondling his necklace. Shamus's eyes widened. He knew he was holding a 3 and assumed if the man was not lying, he must also have a 3. "Okay, you 2 horse cooks," Shamus confidently proclaimed. "I'm calling your bid spot on." A hush fell over the very large crowd which had collected around the high-stakes game. All eyes eagerly awaited. Shamus had a 3. As Shamus predicted, the shirtless man also had a 3. The top hat man told the truth and actually had a 6. The bid was spot on. Both Shamus's opponents grumbled. They cast their losing dice into the pot, and the crowd erupted with roars and cheering. Shamus could barely lift the pot full of silver and threatened the crew. "If any of your humping badgers touch this silver, I'll run you through and throw you into the drink." The crowd laughed and made mock threats to steal Shamus's fortune when he slept. So happy to see a common man win, the crowd continued cheering and thumping the deck with their feet, howling and clapping, long after the shirtless man congratulated Shamus and the gentleman sulked off. Only a few days were left of the crossing, and to the crew's pleasure, it had been relatively uneventful. It was commonly known that crossing the ocean in early summer can be very treacherous because of the wild weather, but the ship had been lucky not to have the ocean's wrath affect them. The crew attributed good weather and good luck to the proper care given to old sea rituals. A bottle was successfully smashed on the hull to ensure a safe return, and a horseshoe was properly secured to the mast to keep storms away. A black cat was kept on board, ensuring sailors would safely return home from sea, and rum was generously poured on the deck and the ocean to offer the sea god a bribe for safe passage. Most sailors wore earrings to prevent them from drowning, and were properly tattooed for protection as well. All these precautions convinced the sailors of safe passage. When a family of dolphins were spotted off the starboard side swimming with the ship, the crew were confident they and their ship were blessed. Patrick was woken by the sounds of excitement and rushed topside to see what the commotion was. The imposing sun blinded him immediately, but after he rubbed the darkness from the cabin out of his eyes, Patrick could see a hazy coastline lying far off in the horizon. Captain Gibbons could be heard praising the sailing master for such a deft job. The Robin was but one day's sail up the coast. Straying so far off course after the battle with the Spanish privateers, the captain's gratitude of the impressive navigation was well deserved. Morale amongst the crew was high. Each man bragged how they would soon be spending their hard-earned silver on women, fresh food, and strong spirits. "Quartermaster, muster the crew," Captain Gibbons ordered. "It's time we made them understand the rules of shore leave." Immediately the boatswain whistle blew, and the excited crew gathered around the captain. "Before you men get excited and lose your focus, I need to remind you of your obligations," the captain said sternly, looking at each man in turn. "You will have only 1 week to enjoy your shore leave, but you must check in with the quartermaster at high noon every day. Remember, you have sworn contract to this vessel, and if you do not return to honor these commitments, the consequences will be severe." The captain allowed the men their moment to grumble. He understood their excitement because the crew had been stuck on the ship for weeks, but he would not suffer any indiscretion. When the men quieted again, he continued, "There are certain rules and protocols in Savannah you must follow, or you will disgrace the ship and its captain." Quartermaster Mandrick was quick to drive the point home and shouted, "And any of you crew who break the rules and disgraces the captain, I will flog you to the devil." "Now then," continued the captain, "Savannah only has 4 rules you must remember. No strong water, spirits, rum, or brandy is allowed." A loud rumble of objection quickly overtook the crew. "But beer, ale, and wine are just fine," Gibbons explained. 2. Absolutely no lawyers are allowed. The city understands that lawyers create divisiveness and encourage clients to seek out causes. So if you do get in trouble while ashore, you'll have to plead your own case. Then you'll have to come back and deal with Mr. Mandrick, the captain warned. 3. There is no slavery in this town. The Negroes you meet will be free men, and we expect you to keep your peace with them. 4th, and finally, no Papists and Roman Catholics are allowed to worship there. Savannah doesn't want to worry about its Catholics sympathizing with Spanish Catholics, so the sect of that religion is outlawed. "Fuck! This is going to done break me mother's heart and make Jesus cry, you bastards," Shamus barked up. "I would normally have ordered you beaten close to death for that outburst," the captain cautioned. "But since you are being sold tomorrow, I can't have you blackened. Also, there's no Jews allowed," the captain pointed out. "They really don't enforce this one, but it is their law. So, Isaac, be mindful and lose that little Jew hat of yours." "Unfortunately," the captain addressed the crew and former prisoners, We have some unpleasantness we have to take care of before we land. Let this serve as a demonstration that I am not a captain you want to embarrass in Savannah." Then turned to Mr. Mandrake and ordered, "Bring them up." 2 hoodwinked men were brought up and forced to kneel before the captain. Their hoods were removed, and both men had tears streaming down their face. Captain Gibbons announced so all the crew could hear from their positions. "Mr. Michael and Mr. James, you have denied your odd behavior in the past. I heard complaints from crewmates that you two spend unnecessary and copious amounts of time unclothed around each other. Others have heard noises of a sexual nature deriving from your bunks. You two dress like colorful dandies, not sailors. I have overlooked all this to keep peace in my crew, until Mr. Mandrake caught you two mounting each other in the hold." One of the accused men openly sobbed, while the other merely stared at the planks in the deck. Gibbons continued, "It is unnatural and an insult to your crewmates and to God. Do you have any words before I pass your sentence?" Mr. Michael quivered. He wiped the snot from his nose on his shoulder, gathered the courage, and pronounced, "I can't help it. I love him, Captain. I tried hiding it. I don't care who knows anymore." Upon confessing his guilt, Mr. Michael continued, a deluge of tears. Snickers could be heard from the crew. Mr. James was older than Mr. Michael and stared defiantly at the captain. "You bunch of Judases, hypocrites. Men have been fucking each other on ship since the beginning of time. I've even been fucked by some of yous. I don't see you kneeling down here with me now. You didn't mind kneeling down for me when we were alone, but now you'll be cowards and not stand up for us when it counts." With condemnation, James spit on the deck. "Enough," Captain Gibbons' eyes burning as he dispensed. "For that outburst and unremorseful statement, I pass sentence on the 2 of you disgusting sodomites. 2 rounds of keel-hauling for both of you." The crew gasped at such a harsh punishment. It was at that moment when the Greek man felt his wooden St. Nicholas icon fall out of his pocket and hit the deck. The religious man tried to grab it as it dropped, but he watched in horror as the edge of the icon broke off as it bounced around the planks. A deep sense of dread overtook him, and he realized this was a warning sign from his protective saint. He knew the captain's orders were too extreme, and deep down, he knew he should not follow this order. But years of strict obedience overruled his gut feeling. Instead of not following the harsh order, he tried to convince Gibbons to reduce the sentence. Mr. Mandrake cleared his throat, nervous to question the wisdom of his superior. "Captain, couldn't you just introduce them to the cat of 9 tails or tie them to the mast? Key-hauling for this might sit bad with the crew." Gibbons shot his quartermaster a steely glare. "You heard me, quartermaster. Execute my orders." Mr. Michael wailed like a woman as they were both tied to the keel-haul rope. The line ran from the starboard side deck, under the ship, and back up to the larboard side deck. The long rope was normally used to scrape off barnacles from the keel. Now the 2 offending sodomites' bodies would be used to clean the razor-sharp shells from the bottom of the ship. Mr. James hissed, "Bastards!" as Gibbons nodded to Mandrake. With that cue, Mandrake bellowed, "Send them into the drink, man. Pull them down." A group of sailors pulled hard from the larboard side, and the 2 condemned lovers flew off the deck and over the side of the ship. A loud thumping of kicking could be heard from the ship's hull. The sound made Patrick shudder. After a few seconds, the 2 men emerged from the starboard side, drenched in salt water, gasping for air and screaming in pain. "Quartermaster, that was too fast." The captain smiled maliciously. "Have your men slow it down this time." Mandrake swallowed hard and nodded to his captain that he understood. His voice cracked, and he barked the command. "You heard the captain, boys. Slower." The torture procedure was then reversed, pulling James and Michael over the side and into the sea. The men pulling the rope slowed down this time, drowning and dragging Michael and James across the sharp barnacle shells attached to the belly of the ship. When they were finally pulled out of the water, over the rail, and back on the deck of the Robin, the clothes of the two men were blood-soaked. They were both coughing up water, and Patrick cringed at the sound of the two men whimpering like children. Once untied from the rope, both James and Michaels doubled over, holding the deep lacerations, futilely trying to stop the bleeding. The crew was silent. "I'm not completely heartless," Gibbons explained with a sadistic delight. "See to their wounds, and tie them to the barrel and set them adrift. If you wait a few hours, the tide might be moving towards the shore, and might even get lucky enough to drift into land." The two howling men were dragged to the surgeon quarters, leaving a line of crimson soaking into the deck. A young crewman ran over to quickly mop up the trail. The excitement of landing somehow vanished for Patrick. He just wanted to drift to his station, make himself busy with work, and forget the horror he had just witnessed, when Mandrake reminded, "Hold on, lads. The captain wants more words with yous." The captain rubbed his hands, as if wiping away the dirty business he had just overseen, and spoke. "You 5 will be sold as indentured servants. Work hard and take this opportunity to learn a craft. You will be set free in just 5 short years." Shamus was confused. "I thought I just heard your cocksucking mouth say slavery was forbade." The captain replied, "Ah, fine sir. You are not slaves, since one day you will be free. Until then, you will get living quarters, food, a small salary, and even a little time to enjoy yourselves in town in exchange for your labor. But you will not be allowed to court any women or start a family until your contract is finished." The captain paused to give the next words greater gravity. "Let me explain the consequences, gentlemen. I expect to get top gold for you 5, and you want to make sure that happens. If you do not sell, you will spend the rest of your days doing dog's work on this barkie." "We ought to be doing all the shite jobs," Shamus exclaimed. "One more outburst from you, Mr. Red, and I will let Mr. Mandrake teach you to respect your captain," Captain Gibbons warned coldly. After holding Shamus's eye for a long minute to empathize his seriousness, the captain continued. "We have written ads for you which will be posted in town. Local merchants will come to inspect you and question you. You'll want to put on a good show, and you hope they purchase your services. Otherwise, your life will be unbearable on this ship, and you will curse your mothers for ever birthing you. Do we have an understandable agreement, gentlemen?" "Aye, aye, Captain," Sam chirped. The quartermaster questioned, "Are any of yours versed in word? Raise your palms if yous can read." Patrick and Isaac raised their hands. "You two go over the descriptions of the duties proclaimed in these notes," Mr. Mandrake exclaimed in his heavy, odd Grecian tongue. "Make sure everyone does skills we say we are learned at. I am giving yous the proclamation of sales notes. Don't dare soil them. I'll be back shortly." As the quartermaster walked away, all 5 men gathered around to read the advertisements written about them. Patrick read his own first. The advertisement was written on hemp paper, and in elegant penmanship it read, "Just arrived, June 21st. The sale of the indentured will commence at noon in Market Square. Patrick Willis is versed in word and numbers and is well learned. He has skills of a jeweler and a silversmith. The indentured is very skilled with delicate handwork. This man can adapt to other metalwork, such as blacksmithing and forging. He has also served as a ship carpenter and a surgeon's mate. Terms be a 7-year service. I will sell on bid for ready money or tobacco, and though on credit, bond and security will be required. Inquire with Mr. Mandrick of the Robin for inspection and sale. Patrick reread the advertisement and quickly panned through the others. All these say 7 years, not 5, Patrick stated angrily. We've been lied to again, lads. I thought it be strange. Sam Scurvy piped in. Most prisoners be indentured servants for 7 or 10 years. Only free men serve but 5. Sam thought for a moment and then continued. The captain is going to try to pass us off as free men, I says. He made no notice of our transgressions in the advertisement. You can fuck that fancy cocksucker. I be going to shove his wig right up his arse. Fuck this whole fucked up monkey humping situation. I've had enough of this dog squeeze. Shamus shouted irately. Isaac held up his hands and calmly resolved. I'll suffer 2 more years to never have to go back to that crap hole we were rescued from. Let us ask Mandrick about this when he comes forth, Jessup injected. Agreed. We will have to change this, Patrick conferred. The heat of anger continued to build among the huddled men until the quartermaster returned. What the fuck is this 7-year crap, you Greek goat eater? Yous all lied to us, and you best be changing the notice back to 5 years. Shamus barked as he pointed his angry finger at Mandrick's chest. The quartermaster began to breathe heavy through his nose, like a bull that had seen red. He spoke loudly so there would be no questions. The captain changed the terms, and you all better market it now. You are never to mention your jail time, or I'll throw you into the drink on the way back to London. Now get back with your duties and mention this no more. The quartermaster angrily stomped off, leaving the 5 men staring at each other with dismay. Patrick sighed. I guess we gotta suffer 7 more years until I can truly live free. The 5 former prisoners nodded quietly in agreement as Patrick continued. Lads, much confusion will happen in the next few days, and this may be the last time we are in league together. So let's all concur. One day, on a harvest moon years from now, at the dock we arrive at, we'll have a reunion at their best pub. The grumbling group accepted Patrick's idea. After the men accepted their new fate, the feeling of excitement started to swell again. Tomorrow morning they'd finally see Savannah. The men retired to their duties with a sense of newfound hope.